sunshine on a Monday morning. It is Nordo in for PA. Thanks for tuning in, 9 to noon. The host will return from his exotic location tomorrow. A fun week ahead of us. We got high school hockey and many things to get into later this week. Vikings news. We got trade deadline for the pro team. Many things to dive into this week. But right now, we're going to kick off a Monday with the weekend wrap, which is presented by Northern Fire Grilling and Barbecue Supply in Minnetonka. Up your grill game at northernfirebbq.com. The weekend wrap's going to start here with some good.
Edwards switches from the left hand to the right. Picked up by Hardaway. He's on the logo at midcourt. Now moves forward. Creeps to his right off the Rudy screen. Dante on the wing. Right back to Ant. 5 to shoot. He's got a hoist. He launches and hits. That's unstoppable. Hardaway was right in his space, and Ant just drained his third three of the night. He's got 21.
The Wolves in a matinee yesterday in Mile High. They beat the Nugs. The Nuggets 117-108. Rising to the occasion were the Howl yesterday. Rising up the Western Conference charts. Bones when they needed them. It was Bones, as in Bones Highland, when nobody else had it, specifically early on yesterday. I think Ant had like 4 shot attempts as they were midway through the second quarter. That's not good. They needed Bones, and they got Bones. 18 points on the day for Bones. Nearly a triple-double for the MVP Jokic. Jamal Murray did his thing. I know the Wolves were 0-3 against Denver this season. But it just feels like, yesterday is more the eventuality of this particular matchup. Wolves have things to work on. Wolves not perfect. But as it is with this particular team, this particular matchup, it just kind of feels like we got Denver when the games matter. And they weren't going to go 0-4 against the Nuggets yesterday. And so now, this is reaction. This is recency bias, probably, or likely. But taking a breath and moving on from the inconsistency frustrations with the Wolves. Yes, they will lose inexplicably to the Utah Jazz. Yes, they will lose inexplicably to the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that's their next opponent, in fact. Preposterous as that is. But we also know they'll rise up and muscle their way through a game with a contender. So if it was, the 5 stages of grief. Yes, the 5 stages of grief as it pertains to the Howl. From denial, this isn't happening, to anger, it's happening and it's awful and it infuriates me. To then some bargaining. What if we did this? What if this happened? Could we do this? How about that? To then maybe a little sports-related depression. Ugh. Why? Fire the coach? Burn the whole thing down? I've entered the acceptance phase in some ways. Howl-related acceptance. This is that team. This is what we'll see. Let's just get to the playoffs. They've won 3 straight. They're climbing, as I mentioned, the Western charts. Locked in with Houston. I think Houston's played 2 fewer games, so 1 fewer win, 1 fewer loss. But keep this train moving, find their way into 3rd. Still don't think anybody's catching the Spurs or OKC, at least during the regular season. So let's get that 3rd spot into the playoffs. So that's where the Wolves this weekend. How about more good from the maroon and gold side of the hoop squad?
Now back to Reynolds on the wing left. Now to Durkin off a screen. Open 3. Yeah! Bobby Durkin with 21 and a monster bucket. Minnesota by 6 with 2 minutes to go.
Weekend wrap presented by Northern Fire Grilling and Barbecue Supply. Nico Medved's Gophers beat UCLA at the barn over the weekend. Now, it's not John Wooden's Bruins, but not completely lost. 19-win operation. The Gophers beat them 78-73. You heard that grim highlight. Bobby Durkin, 7 triples. That was his 7th. You heard it. Dig that. Basically the starting 5 all over again. They have a cat coming off the bench named Kai Shinholster. Kai Shinholster. Now, he was mostly concealed as he played just 9 minutes. But Cade Tyson's a dude. He and Langston Reynolds added 21 apiece to help out with Bobby's work. 14-15 on the season. They're at Indiana, and they host Northwestern this week before the Big Ten tourney. To Gophers hockey, they split with Michigan. A win on Thursday, a loss on Friday. It's a tough year winding down. Weekend wrap style for Motzko's team. They have a home affair this Thursday and Friday. Michigan State, Sparty. And then it's a Big Ten tourney for the hockey team as well. Vikings news, it was reported, and then I think there was some banter. Ben Lieber in studio with the Power Trip Morning Show. They were mentioning this. That I saw the Schefter News reposted it on X, but this is probably expected. It's not shocking. You don't have to brace yourself on a weekend wrap Monday morning. But Aaron Jones and Javon Hargrave are set to be released if they are not traded by the opening of the league year. And financial levers. And there are going to be a couple different spots that we chat about this. Not just Aaron Jones and Javon Hargrave, but the path forward for the Minnesota Vikings, finding their way back under the cap so they can make moves and improve the 2026 incarnation of our favorite football team. Javon Hargrave, lack of impact combined with massive dollars, totally makes sense to me. Aaron Jones, in a lot of ways, totally makes sense to me the way we were lauding him 2 years ago. Plays all 17. But I don't believe it would be hyperbole to say that there were times back into the 2024 season. He made all the games, got a bunch of reps, Aaron Jones did. Maybe the first time in his career that he played all 17, unless there was a moment earlier in his career. I don't have his game logs in front of me. But that was the thing, soft tissue injuries. Brett, you know this, as a Packer-loving rube that you are. The thing with Aaron Jones,
done that.
You love Aaron Jones.
I do.
But you knew that you were going to be without his services for anywhere from 3 to 5 games a year. Is that fair?
Yeah, it just happens. It sucks, and availability is the best ability. I get all that, but it's just been a thing that's followed him for the last, I don't know, at least 3-4 years of his career. So, yeah, they kind of knew that going in. Availability is the best ability? That's correct.
Oh, that might be my next tattoo.
Whoa.
That's wise.
Any location?
Obvious lower back, of course. But to that end, making all the games in 2024, it was Cam Akers in some ways towards the back end of that season that looked fresh, that had a little more jump and spark to his game. That's not supposed to happen. And then he does miss. I think he played in 12 games this last season. Love Aaron Jones, but the cap number combined with he's 31, I think maybe 32. By the time we're playing games that count in 2026. And, for that, it kind of extends beyond that, though. So, okay, he misses games every single season. He is one of those dudes in the locker room that everyone freaking loves. And so finding that answer and just appreciating maybe from a culture standpoint, the big sombrero and everything with it, that will be a tough goodbye for this team, but understanding given the situation with the purple. Hey, new regime. We want to get younger, and we want to get more financially flexible. Well, the team is older and $40 million over the cap. So how did that work 4 years later? I want to get younger and more financially flexible. Now we got to cut 8 guys just to get under the cap. So that's Vikings news that we'll get into a couple times throughout 9 to noon today. And then finally, the hockey team thrilled us at Mile High, but then there's this.
Keller had to play it out of his skates, gave it back to Sergachev, shooting one, batted down in front, they score.
Oh. Well, that was Friday at Utah. What about yesterday? Welcome back to Grand Casino Arena, Wild fans.
Rather by the Blues, Buchnevich to Thomas, and Robert Thomas back in the lineup. Salts this one away.
Thank you to Joe O'Donnell on the call. Did you hear anything? How about Staylock? Now, Tom Reed had to take a day off. Alex Staylock providing some elite analysis yesterday. Wild Radio Network. Joe O'Donnell, loving him, of course. But the Minnesota Wild, losers now of 2 of 3 since we come into the break. And it was a yawner yesterday against the Blues. Loved Kaprizov getting that power play tally, but scoreless meets 1-1. And it was slow on a Sunday until Buchnevich finds that goal like 17 minutes into the third. You heard the empty netter from Robert Thomas. Is Robert Thomas available? Robert Thomas is nice, isn't he?
He's a good player when he wants to play. He's very good.
He's not bad. He's not bad.
Pretty good.
3-1 the final yesterday. This Utah thing is incredible. Now, Micheletti's, he's right around the corner, so I want to ask him about this. But the Wild have lost 2 to Utah this year by a combined 11-4 score. Okay, well, that's this year. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. At least we dominated them last season. Oh, well, hang on. Last year, 6-1. Okay. 4-0 Mammoth. Ooh, 2-1 loss. Felt like we could have had that. Probably screwed over by the refs.
That's puck luck.
That's hockey. December 2024, here you go. We won in a shootout against them in their building. They are the Mammoth are 5-0-1 against us since relocating. So whether it's the Mammoth or it's that license plate logo it looked like they had when they first went to Utah, they hammer on us, and there's one left against them this year. So let's change that. Lightning in town tomorrow. Top of their division, 80 points like the Wild. They've struggled out of the break, too, just smoked by the Sabres. Sabres kind of fancy themselves a playoff team, don't they? Unbelievable. We've also added some blue liner to the Iowa mix, Roman Schmidt. He came from Philly. We sent them Boris. Is it Kachuk?
I'd assume.
It's spelled differently, so he can't be related to Brady or Matthew. But we sent Boris. I didn't know we had Boris on the team. Best of luck to him. Is that a move that leads to another move? Trade deadline later this week. I'm going to ask Micheletti about that next segment. So that's the weekend wrap, and it's brought to you by Northern Fire Grilling and Barbecue Supply. Grills, smokers, sauces, and rubs. They have it all at Northern Fire. NorthernFireBBQ.com is the place to start or shop. Some weekend wisdom, some barbecue wisdom, by the way. Or maybe in this case, this is just one man's opinion. Do you use apple cider vinegar to spritz that prized rack of ribs on the smoker? Stop it. No, thank you. The flavor ruins it. Apple juice? Yes. Cider vinegar? No. Or, how about this? Apple juice? Love it. Chiefs Vox Mitch Holtis and his patented sweet nectar of the end zone. Try peach nectar. Or, you can be boring like me and just use water. Just a thought. A little rap wisdom. Weekend wrap brought to you by Northern Fire. Which brings us to the TimberTech set list, which is brought to you by TimberTech, timbertech.com. Around the corner, I mentioned Pat Micheletti is going to be joining me for an extended hockey segment. Looking forward to hearing from Pat Mick 2626, whether it's the pro team trade deadline around the corner, the hockey team I mentioned, Motzko's bunch. They're going to basically, I think they have to run the Big Ten tournament table to find their way into the national side of things. But we're going to talk a bunch of hockey with Micheletti. Pete Najarian, very excited about this. At 10 a.m., Pete Najarian's going to stop by, and we're going to chat all things Minnesota Vikings and the pathway forward for a 9-8 team that needs to ace the draft, that does need to get more financially flexible, that does need to get younger. We're going to get high-end opinions from Mr. Najarian at 10. And then at 11, Alec Lewis of The Athletic just released a piece this morning, I believe, that we're going to dig into. And he spent the better part of a week at the Combine. So we're going to try and get some steam rolling with Alec and chat about the quarterback spot. And, of course, more Vikings-heavy conversation to start the final hour. Brett Blakemore produces. I'm Nordo, in for PA on a beautiful Monday. It's 9 to noon. You're listening to The Fan. We'll be back with Micheletti next.
Celebrates our teachers that won $5,000 in iHeartRadio's Thank a Teacher. It's powered by Donors Choose, and there's still time to nominate a public school teacher making a difference. They could be the next to win $5,000 to make over their whole classroom. Do it now. iHeartRadio.com/teachers. iHeartRadio.com/teachers.
By the Blues, Michletti to Thomas, and Robert Thomas back in the lineup. Salts this one away.
No! Joe O'Donnell on the call. Minnesota Wild Radio Network right here on The Fan. And joining me now, Nordo in for PA, it's Pat Micheletti at Pat Mick 2626. How are you doing this morning, Pat?
I'm doing pretty well, Nordo. yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm terrific. It's a sun-soaked Monday,
Good.
and I get to hang out with Brett, and I get to talk to you. So I don't know how it gets any.
What could be better? What could be better?
About
right?
Nothing. Absolutely. Who's
Not
got
much.
it better than us? Nobody, says Jim Harbaugh.
Exactly.
What's up with this team? They just can't beat the Mammoth. I mean, I'm trying to worry about getting over the Avalanche in the postseason, and man, we got to change the playoff format, and it's and all of these things, and we're fighting to. I mean, frankly, let's just win a series in the playoffs, and then we can move forward from there. But you get what I'm saying. I'm thinking about the juggernauts, but the freaking Mammoth are the toe stubbing affair for this hockey team. Have been for 2 years now.
Well, they're a pretty good team. In fact, they're have a very, very good chance at making the playoffs. In fact, they're in if the playoffs are starting tomorrow. Excuse me. They will be in the playoffs. So, I mean, we all want them to win every game, right? We all want them to go 82-0, and that's just not reality. And when you play against teams that have talent, and then that things like that are going to happen. Now, yesterday's game, it was which team was going to be less lethargic.
Yeah.
In terms of who would win or lose that game yesterday. And so, I think it's hard to explain, Nordo, but it's just sometimes you have one of those days where it's not there, and the other team has just a little bit more. And so, that's the nature of the game that we love to watch.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And yeah, Mammoth are a good team. I think about it sometimes, and we've been on the good side of some of these mixes. I mean,
Yep.
the runs we've had against Edmonton, I think, would be a good example of it. Montreal, save maybe for shellacking earlier this season. The Wild had basically been unbeatable against the Canadiens. So we've been on the good side of it. And I know Clayton Keller and some of these names, a couple former Gophers, I believe, in the mix with Utah as well, one or two at least.
Yep.
But
Cooley,
that's the name I was.
Nate Schmidt.
Yeah, that's right. So I know they're a good team. It's one of those things. It's like freaking Utah.
We love our team, and we expect our team to just never lose because we have Quinn Hughes and Matt Bolding, Kaprizov and Eck. But you know what? Those fans in those cities have, Clayton, you just mentioned them, Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, Peterka. I mean, they're pretty good too. And that's one thing about the National Hockey League, Nordo, is that it's the best league in the world. And in fact, I was having a conversation with someone the other day. I said, "Tell me who's the worst team in the National Hockey League?" And and that person really concedes that, well, it could be this team, could be that team. I said, yeah, well, and let's not forget that team you just mentioned, just beat the Tampa Bay Lightning or whoever. And so it's just, there's just a lot of really, really, really good players in the league. And it's tough to win every night.
Let me back up and then we'll move forward. So Wild lose yesterday 3-1 to the Blues, and they're hosting Tampa tomorrow. Looking forward to that one. A little later puck drop, I believe. But Patrick, since the resume last week post Olympics, is there anything that stood out to you in terms of, you mentioned lethargic regarding the affair at Grand Casino Arena yesterday? You're right. That's the right term to use. Have you seen any of that as maybe like a league-wide thing, certain teams or certain trends over the last 4 or 5 days now, where you're like, yeah, these guys are a little rusty after 2.5, 3 weeks on the shelf for many of these guys?
Well, just think about it. You're going from the highest of highs, and then, back, and then you're going back to the best league in the world. And, depending upon what team you are on, I think it just, for the players for the players themselves that are coming back, it's like, A, they're tired. B, they got to get back into that grind. C, even though the pace is frenetic, typically in most NHL games, they're coming back to, not the pace and the pressure. And I think that affects them a little bit. Now, they're going to be playing at this crazy rate number of games to finish a season, and a lot of teams will be trying to make the playoffs or jockey for position or whatever. So I think it'll ramp up again to what we saw, because what we saw, for example, yesterday was like, it was, I don't even know. The only word I can come up with is lethargic, Nordo, because there wasn't a lot of pace there. From either team, there wasn't a lot of fight. There wasn't a lot of hitting. It just wasn't there yesterday, and so I think that'll change as the trade deadline comes to a close on Friday, and teams know where they're at and what they're fighting for, and all of that stuff. So. I think that's the best explanation I can give.
Hey, what's your thought? My thought on this with kind of this victory tour that's taken place for more than a week now. The Hughes brothers, of course, 2 members of the women's team were in the mix on Saturday Night Live, and I believe Quinn's on his way back to the grander metro area to do another TV spot, etc. What have you thought of it? It's been fun to watch this. As I framed it up last week, Pat, I don't want this to be just a fleeting moment. Really soak this in and enjoy the gold medal. And maybe, Quinn's got to catch some extra Z's and find his way to get rest over the next week or so. But I love the fact that they're still out there and they're being exposed, and we're continue again to soak in the love of that Olympic victory.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And, and speaking of our sport is not the National Football League. It's not the National Basketball Association. We don't get the exposure that those other sports do, and probably for a reason. And so when you get this opportunity to expose not only the individuals for their accomplishments, but also for the sport, I think it's wonderful. And if there's any guy, Nordo, that I think can do it, it's a Quinn Hughes. Because if you were to ask him, he'd be out on the rink 24 hours a day. So I don't think it affects him as much as it might affect another player, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
He's just one of those freaks of nature that can go out and play. And it seems seamless. Now, you're not going to have a great game every night. Nobody is. And so, he may have what we deem a little off night sometimes, but that is us being selfish, I think, in terms of what we expect out of the guy every single night. So I think it's great for him. I think, and his brother, but his brother didn't have to travel, obviously, because he's right in New Jersey there. But I think it's great for the game.
No, I think it is too. Big deep breath moment for Eric Sinecti just a day or so ago, right? With this eye thing.
Yeah, I did not see the incident, but yes, they lose him, then our general manager is really working the phones to get not one, maybe 2 centers. So it's and to have him play yesterday, that's very, very good, because he's one of those guys that if you're going to make a run, he needs to be in your lineup.
So moving forward here, it's a big day on Friday, Mr. Micheletti. We saw some news, and maybe some people just kind of yawn or just bat an eyelash at it. Maybe not at all, given the name or the lack of name equity associated with it. But team adds a blue liner. They send this Boris Kachuk to the Philadelphia Flyers, but probably not the move that everyone's waiting on pins and needles for Bill Guerin to execute here between now and the trade deadline. Are you on pins and needles seeing what Billy G can work? You mentioned working those phones one way or another, maybe adding a piece later this week, somebody that can contribute.
Got to be the right guy, and don't want to give up too much. Do I think they need to add one or two pieces for them to be a legitimate contender for the Stanley Cup? Yes, I really do. And so it's all a matter about weighing, what you're giving up. And if you truly, truly believe that this is a year that they can do it, then I think you do it. But if you still have hesitation that you think, we still need to grow a little bit, okay? And maybe next year would be that year. Well, then you wait. So, it's got to be the right deal without giving up the farm, if you will. But I'm one of those guys that, the window does not stay open for that long a period with the players that you have. And when you're talking Hughes, Eck, Boldy, Kaprizov, those are guys that, that can get you there, right?
Yeah.
And so I just, if the right deal is there, of course, you've got to go for it. And so I don't know who that player is going to be, but we'll just have to wait until Friday, I guess, right?
Yeah, and the reason I bring this up in that way, in terms of, you trust in Billy G. He's never been shy about making a move. But I'm curious, as the week goes on, how okay would Wild fans, how okay would you be if they don't make a move? I mean, right now, the steam, Patrick, Pat Micheletti at Pat Mick 2626, hear him beyond the pond, of course, hear him doing Gophers Radio, hear him doing all sorts of things, and one of the fan favorites, as he is. But Vinny Trocheck's been the steamy one to this team, and for a while now, just kind of weeding your way through. This team wants a center, this team wants a certain shot, this team wants to win faceoffs, this team wants this and that. And Vinny Trocheck, 32-ish years old, he might be that guy. But if the asking price is so astronomical that it gets into the territory that you're mentioning, and he doesn't end up making a move, I just wonder how people will feel about that. Because the conversation has been exclusively tidal waves coming. Another move's going to happen. And if you do want to maintain something that can continue to be built where it might be a next year sort of conversation, I just wonder how, first you and maybe how Wild fans might take that if a significant transaction isn't made.
Well, here's the deal. I don't think, I don't get too excited per se about Vinny Trocheck. That being said, because, and I'll frame it this way. What the New York Rangers want for Vinny Trocheck, I think, is going to be crazily high. And so for that, I don't like the thought of acquiring a Vinny Trocheck. I said 2 weeks ago, maybe even 3 weeks ago, Nordo, that maybe this team, if you're putting guys on a level and you're calling Vinny Trocheck, at that top level, I wouldn't mind, because I don't think Vinny Trocheck is that all-star caliber guy. Okay? I think he's a really good player and can check a few boxes for you. But there's a bunch of guys that in that next tier underneath that I think can do the job just as well as Vinny Trocheck, and you won't have to give up, all of those assets per se. And there are players out there that can do that. And maybe also, instead of throwing all your assets at a Vinny Trocheck, maybe you can get another D because in the playoffs with the way that these guys block shots, get hit, all that stuff, you're going to need depth on the blue line. And so for me, I would love to get a top 6 forward, and I would love to get a defenseman. I think those are two critical areas that they need to hit as they enter the playoffs. And so, that's where I kind of look at things. But if you can get Trocheck at not the assets that, the Rangers want, well, then you look at that. That's how I kind of look at it. But, we're all guessing here at what Billy Guerin's thinking too.
Yeah. No, the crazy thing about Bill too is it is truly a guessing game, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, whether.
Yeah. I mean, listen, and there's a lot of teams, and we look at it from the perspective of, we're the only team in the league, right? Well, we're not.
Oh.
And guess what? There's other teams that think, hey, if we get player X, Y, or Z, we have a chance to make a run at the Cup. And there are other suitors out there for not a very, I mean, if you look at the centers that are available, they're not, Nazem Kadri's 37 years old. I liked him when he won the Cup with Colorado, 3 years ago? And, and I don't know, and he's making like $8 million for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So I just, it's very risky to go after, players like that, because then it hamstrings you going forward. And so they've got a very tough job, and with the lack of centers that are out there, those prices go up higher. And so, you gotta have what it takes to walk away if you have to walk away from something like that.
Time for a couple more here for you. First, the college, and then I want to jump in. It's a big week for high school boys and the hockey tournament coming to Grand Casino Arena. But,
and as we had the first topic on college hockey, a big shout out to the Minnesota State Mavericks.
Oh, really?
Horns
up.
Who win the McNaughton Cup. They fell into it. There were 5 teams that could have won the Cup on Saturday night. And the pieces had to fall for Minnesota State to win it, and it happened. And so a big shout out to the Mavs for winning it their second year in a row. And I don't know how many they've won recently, but good for them. Good for Luke Strand. Good for the Mayo Maniacs who support Minnesota State on a nightly basis down there. And it's going to be a great playoff. So a big shout out to Minnesota State.
The Mayo Maniacs. I love that. You mentioned college hockey, so we mentioned the Mavs and the McNaughton Cup. And as a fan, Cato native, I'm rooting horns up for them. But since down year for Motzko's team, who are, and maybe it's the Mavericks, but in terms of our area, who are teams that you're looking at that could potentially make a splash in the NCAA tournament? Now, Gophers could go win the Big Ten tournament and find their way in. That's cool, and I hope they do. But in terms of this particular season, who's potentially ready to make a little noise in the tourney?
Oh boy. Are we talking the teams from the state of Minnesota?
Well, I mean,
if we're talking that,
you want to jump over to
the Mavs. You have the UMD Bulldogs who have had a good year.
Okay.
Now they haven't played as well as of late, but they get home ice against St. Cloud in the first round of the NCHC playoffs. I will tell you this, Nordo, this year, the Gophers go into Michigan, the number 2 team in the country, and in their building, and they split with them. And my point being is that this year in college hockey, the parity is it's so tight. You don't know on a nightly basis who is going to win. So there's a lot of teams that have a chance to win the national title this year. There's about 5 or 6, maybe even 10 teams that aren't going to make the tournament that certainly could be worthy of it and make a run at it. And that's how good, or, if you don't want to call it good, you can call it, that's how tight the college hockey landscape is this year. And it's been a good year for college hockey.
Yeah, it has been indeed. And, Grand Forks, you could look up at Grand Forks and see maybe a certain team that's had a heck of a season.
Yeah.
Sadly, you could look over at Madison and see a team that's primed to do some good things, what Hastings has done out there. So plenty of good teams around us, and we just expect Motzko's team to be back in the mix a year from now. Last topic for you, Mr. Micheletti. Boys high school tournament lifts off this week. We see the brackets. How about your Hibbing squad? How about your Hibbing squad as I believe a top seed in the
number one seed in Class A.
How about can you tell me about my Scarlets? Do the Mankato West Scarlets have any shot Wednesday against Delano?
I will tell you this, and you make it to the state tournament, you got a shot.
You got a shot.
You're doing something right.
Okay.
I don't care what league or what conference you're in. You've got a shot. Now, is the task tall for a Mankato West, for a Dodge County, for teams like that? Of course. But you know what? They're there. You never know what can happen. Hibbing as the number 1 seed better come in ready to play. And I will get to see them because I'm working their game on Wednesday. So
Wednesday at
it'll
11.
Be nice to see my I'm going to call them my Hibbing Blue Jackets. But no, it should be a great tournament. Looking forward to it.
Oh, that's awesome. And in Double A. What do we got here? Well, Tonka's number 1. Okay, that's not shocking. Edina back in the mix. Puck Luck and all be damned. They're handling business. Lakeville South is certainly a force. How about the Spuds? The Spuds, I believe this would be a repeat campaign for Moorhead, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they're loaded with Pullins. If you obviously remember that name,
Vaguely, yes.
They are loaded with Division I players. They're a very, very, very good team. Minnetonka is, I think, going to be the favorite. They're a team with, it's odd in a year with Minnetonka. They don't have a lot of per se stars on their team, but they have a lot of depth on their team, and so the Double A is going to be really good with as you mentioned, the teams that you mentioned. So. Every year it's a great tournament, and this year should be no different.
No, and you're terrific as always. I appreciate you giving me some time on a Monday morning. Have an awesome day, and you're working that Hibbing game, so rest up and be ready to rock for your Blue Jackets on Wednesday.
I certainly will. Thank you, Nordo. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. That's Pat Micheletti at PatMick2626. Wild back at it against the Lightning tomorrow. And then, as we were talking about, you have high school hockey just dominating St. Paul as it does on a yearly basis. Really cool matchups ahead. And that is, over the next couple of days, Tony Scott, Olivia King, just a couple, Kevin Gorg, I believe as well. We're going to have several guests that are dedicated to breaking down the boys high school tournament at Grand Casino Arena. So looking forward to all that. Looking forward to Pete Najarian joining me at 10 a.m., Alec Lewis of The Athletic at 11. And thank you for listening to 9 to Noon. We'll be back in minutes.
Are you looking to score tickets to the biggest games and concerts in town, from the Minnesota Wild to Santana, the Doobie Brothers, Chris Stapleton, and more? Your chance to win is waiting. Enter right now. KFAN.com, keyword contests. KFAN.com, keyword contest.
Welcome back. This is a super short segment here, 9 to noon, because Pete Najarian's going to be in studio for a couple of segments following here at the top of the hour. And then Alec Lewis, Vikings heavy conversation post-combine. News coming out, and I'll probably get into Pete a bit about this. I mentioned it in the weekend wrap. Just all the financial levers that the Vikings have to pull being, nearly $50 million over the cap. It was 45 and change. And again, for a team, 3-4 years ago, if we can just bring our minds back to that point, here's what I need from you, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Here's what I need from you, new Vikings regime. I need you to get more financially flexible. Oh, that didn't happen. I need you to get younger. That didn't happen either. And so Aaron Jones, sadly, unless he's traded, it sounds like he'll become a cap casualty in that regard. Javon Hargrave, a one and done, and he will be a cap casualty as well. And, part of that conversation with Pete, and I'll just kind of reset this in a few minutes, is the path ahead for Brzezinski and this group. You heard it 9 to noon last week. And, whether it is, of course, pulling all those financial levers, more to come, by the way. TJ Hawkinson, though, and restructures and void years, oh my. But the path forward in terms of the getting younger portion of things, being successful in this draft. And, Javon Hargrave harkens me back to a year ago where we're thinking about his addition. We're thinking about the Jonathan Allen contract. We're thinking about, wow, I didn't even know center was on our radar, but we move on from Garrett Bradbury and we add Ryan Kelly. And you start putting these things together on paper, and there was a lot of buts. Yeah, but I only played in 5 games last year. Yeah, if all these guys stay healthy, these are material, substantial changes. Well, that plays into the draft as well. And so they're going to plug holes. They're going to add bodies to this team via the draft in April. But just like we had to wait for things to play out on the field last year with these free agent acquisitions, we really have to wait even longer before we know whether April's draft was a success or not. And, I think Dallas Turner would be one of the finest examples of that, as a guy that we traded up for, moved up for. If he could only get on the field for about 300 snaps his rookie season, more productive last year. There are positive things to dig into with Dallas. We can play the will he ever live up to the draft equity that we put in him. That's a conversation for another day. But think about that. Through 2 years of Dallas Turner, we're still kind of scratching our head saying, there's some really good things about him. 17th overall, good? Not sure yet. But we're hoping for year 3. And that's the path ahead for Brzezinski and company, is we're going to see a lot of names on a list in April, but we're going to have to play that waiting game to figure out how successful they really were. So that's kind of where we're going to get into with Pete Najarian, my next guest. He's going to be in studio right around the corner. Brett Blakemore produces. I'm Nordo in for PA on a sun-soaked Monday, right here 9 to noon on the Fan.